you are not your goals. You are not that thing on your vision board. You are not that thing you wrote down on your list, on your resolutions. Have you ever set a New Year's resolution? Decided on a goal that you want to achieve in the coming year? Did you know that by February, 80% of people have already quit, already given up on the goals that they set just a month beforehand? Now, why is that? Well, it's because, quite simply, when we're looking at what we want to do, we're setting goals around all the things that we want to achieve. We also need to ask ourselves, who do we want to be? Now, how many times in your life have you set a goal of who you want to be, looked at that really deeply before you've decided what you want to do in life? Now, most of us have this backwards. And so oftentimes, even when we achieve the things that we want to achieve, we find that we're often unsatisfied, or it's not really what we thought it was going to be. Now, let's talk about integrity. When we're talking about integrity and being in alignment with the things that we say that we want to do, or the things that we say about ourselves, right? We also have to look at our identity. We can't have integrity before we know who we are. And all of those goals that we talk about have to stem from that question, who am I? Because if we look at the definition of what having integrity means, integrity essentially means being in alignment. Means that what you say, what you think, and what you do are in alignment with who you are. Not just who you say you are, right? And so having integrity means that you're in alignment with your moral compass. And so this is a really big question, right? Who am I? I mean, if I were to ask you right now on the spot, you'd probably take a deep sigh and think, oh man, I don't even know who I am. Or where do I even begin? And so we have to be in alignment. We have to ask this question of who we are. Because as we're evolving as people, ultimately, who we are also has to evolve. And so let's differentiate first between these two, between what we want and who we want to be, right? So oftentimes when we want to look at who we are, who we want to be, for example, I'll give you a really great example from my own life. When I was working on my business, I had this idea, I had this vision board of the type of life I wanted to live. I wanted to be the owner of a company, of an organization that made an impact in the world. I wanted to travel everywhere, so I had all these images of, my family on an airplane, of these beautiful tropical islands, of me with a really fit mind and body and spirit. But I had just put those there, and I hadn't asked myself who I really wanted to be. Who did I need to become in order to be all of those things? And so I achieved all the things that I had on there, or a great deal of them, but I was still unhappy because my goals didn't start with me. And so oftentimes when we talk about what we want before exploring who we are, we're actually going after other people's goals. We're not in alignment. We can't have integrity because we don't even know what we stand for yet, what we truly value. And so once again, coming back to this question of, well, how do we determine who that is? Where do we even start? It's a lot easier to start at what we're not. So first of all, you are not your goals. You are not that thing on your vision board. You are not that thing you wrote down on your list, on your resolutions. This This is why one of the reasons why it doesn't work out for people is because they haven't gone deep enough yet. They haven't asked themselves this question: who do I need to be? What do I maybe need to work on myself before I put this external goal on my list? Because your goals can't be you because of two things. It takes time to achieve goals. And also, your goals are external from you. There's something that you come up with that's often inspired from external sources. And they are important, but the difference is when we're talking about our identity, we can change that just like that. And trust me, it really is as simple as that. If you've ever been really hurt by someone, if somebody has overstepped a boundary, I guarantee that in an instant you said, I will never let anybody walk all over me like this again. I will never let anybody hurt me like this ever again. And so in that instant, just like that, you change your identity. And so this is where what we say, what we think, what we do has to be in alignment. And that's what actually determines our identity when we are in integrity with all of that. So for example, I said that I wanted to be somebody who made an impact in the world. So who did I have to become in order to succeed in my business and succeed in living the life that I wanted, where I could travel with my family, where I could go and work from all these beautiful places, where my mind and my body and my spirit were in alignment? Who did I need to be to do that? I needed to be able to stand up for myself. I needed to value my time. I needed to be somebody who, when they said they were going to have a half-an-hour call, you're going to have a half-an-hour call. I needed to be somebody who was very clear on the type of people, the type of energy I wanted to let into my life. And that opened up so many doors. Because until I determined those things about who did I need to become, my goals were irrelevant. And so I started to work on those three things. What was I saying to myself? What was I saying in the outside world? Was that in alignment? So what you think as well, how you dress, how you act, has to be in alignment. And then what you do, that is where you reaffirm your identity. Every time you do something in alignment with what you say and what you think. And so once we've determined that, once we've determined who we want to be, or how we can take the next step to reaffirming that, what you can do is you can visualize. So really taking the time to imagine in your mind, what is that going to feel like when I'm that person? That version of me, what does that look like? What do they do? How does it feel in my body? And so you can do this in a number of different ways. You can use creative visualization. There are a number of exercises in order to do that. You can do it whilst you're meditating. And this is something you can also take the time to write down and really get crystal clear on. And when it comes to that, actually, I have a funny story. This is actually how my partner and I manifested each other. Now, I know it might sound crazy to some people, but it's true. Because even the first time that he met me, he said, "You're going to be my wife." And I laughed. But he had been so clear on the type of person, who he wanted, how that felt. And so when he met me, he just knew. And so here we are, a couple of years later, with a baby, living in a beautiful house in Mexico. But that all started with, who do I want to be? Who do I need to be to attract that person into my life? And so before deciding on what we want in our life as well, and who this person is that we want to be in order to achieve those things, it all has to stem from our values. Because our values are the foundation of everything that we say, that we think, and we do. is always in alignment with what we value and what our needs are. And so if this is something you haven't explored yet, I have a whole other video just on the topic of how can you determine what your values are, and it being crystal clear of actually your values. Because in my own journey, as I was setting those goals that I mentioned before, it took me a long time to realize that some of them weren't even my own, because I hadn't gotten deep enough. I hadn't decided on what I valued yet. And so I do really encourage you to check out that video and explore for yourself, what are those values? What are the things that are actually important to me, without listening to all of the other voices? And finally, with every single thing that we say, what we do, and what we think, we are reinforcing our identity. And the thing about going after these goals that we have and becoming the person that we want to become, changing those things, setting boundaries, becoming more confident, becoming more courageous. Every single day we have an opportunity to be more in alignment with that or further away from it. And so, is the environment around you actually helping you to reinforce that identity, or is it taking you away from it? So for example, if you are surrounding yourself with people who don't care about growing, they don't care about their own success, they don't care about being, reading books and furthering themselves, and they prefer to go out clubbing every weekend or drinking or whatever, and that's not in alignment with the goals that you've set, it's going to be very, very difficult, almost impossible to be able to achieve and be able to transform that area of yourself and your life that you want to transform. And it's not that we're lacking in discipline when we set these goals. It's just that our environment oftentimes doesn't help us to reinforce them. All of us have the capability and the capacity to be motivated. You have the capacity and the capability to do anything and everything that you want. You have the ability right now, here, right now, to change and drop something that is not serving you. But in order for that to last, we also need to make sure that the environment around us is helping us and supporting us. And so, for example, surrounding yourself with better people. For example, if you've decided that you want to take your body and your physical feeling, your state, how you feel, your fitness to the next level, then we get to change some things in our environment. So setting up, for example, your sports clothes instead of where you would usually watch TV every single day. So for the type of person you want to be, what are you doing in your life? What are you saying to yourself and to others? What are you thinking? Is that really in alignment with who you want to be? And if you have these big goals and ambitions, or any type of goal for yourself that you've been thinking about for setting for yourself, who do you have to first become in order to get there? And is that in alignment with your truest values?